Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
8:06 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks so much for letting us be a part of your Christmas Eve. We're so excited. It's a great time of year, obviously, and we love being live and local for you as you get everything squared away and finished and ready for the big holiday. Coming up in 30 minutes, very excited to talk to an old dear friend of mine, one of the original bloggers back at Breitbart, even pre-Breitbart, Jon Gabriel. You know him as X-Jon. He's a columnist. He's also a former U.S. Navy submarine nuclear reactor operator, and he's got a brand new book. It's his first novel called Sink the Rising Sun. It's out now, and it's about submarine warfare in World War II. It's Larry O'Connor with Mercedes Schlapp, and Mercedes, joined by a really good man who, listen, for years you've heard John Eastman on my program and on WMAL as a constitutional scholar, an expert, an attorney. He's one of the many voices we had to give legal expert opinions on all of the things that were going on in this country and in this town, and certainly during the Trump administration. He's so good that Donald Trump actually hired him for legal advice during the 2020 election and post-election day. Legal arguments, and for that, John Eastman's life had to be destroyed. And I don't think I'm overstating the case. There's a brand new documentary about this. It's called The Eastman Dilemma: Lawfare or Justice. You can get to it at eastmandilemma.com, eastmandilemma.com. John Eastman, Merry Christmas to you, sir, and it's always great to talk with you.
Merry Christmas to you, Larry, and thank you for that very kind introduction. It's quite a saga we've had over the last 3 years.
Oh, I'll say, and people will remember. I mean, John, you were absolute, still are a constitutional scholar. You know the Supreme Court. You know constitutional law. You've been a professor at at Chapman University, one of the fine institutions in this country. And then it all went sour because you advised Donald Trump with regard to the Electoral College and many of the things that have still not been explained or answered with regard to certain states circumventing their basic laws and protocols in the 2020 election. What does your documentary detail, though, in terms of the attacks on you and the attempts to destroy your life?
Well, it first lays out the case, the constitutional case, on why the state legislatures have exclusive power to direct the manner of choosing electors. It then demonstrates a case on how election officials in several key states ignored that constitutional right of the legislatures. And then it provides a basis for the remedy we propose, which is legislative review of all of the illegality and a determination on whether it affected the outcome of the election, so that then the vice president could actually choose electors who had actually won rather than those that were merely certified based on illegality.
And if I may, these are all things, these are important issues and worthy of political debate and legal debate, and certainly need to be debated and figured out because there's still a lot of ambiguity. But there was no interest in debating you, John Eastman. There was an interest in silencing you and trying to keep you from ever having any level of respectability or credibility in social circles or societal circles.
Well, as you know, part of the lawfare effort against me, against President Trump and a lot of others, was launched by a group called the 65 Project, so named because of the false claim that there were 65 frivolous suits filed and they were going to go after the lawyers on all of them. In most of those cases, the courts did not even look at the merits of the claims. But that one of the founders of the 65 Project said, look, our goal is not just to get all these people disbarred, but to make them so toxic in their firms and their communities that right-wing legal talent will never take on these kind of cases again. They're trying to destroy the adversarial system of justice and the rule of law. And think about it. If you don't have lawyers standing up against illegality in the conduct of an election, or willing to defend parents who protested at school board meetings and are being targeted for it, or whatever the hot button issue that our elite left in this country has decided is something you're not allowed to talk about. If you don't have lawyers willing to stand up for it, rule of law is gone, and the illegality will go on with impunity in the future. That's why this film was made. I was delighted when I was approached by producers to want to tell this story because I think it's a story that every American needs to hear and become attuned to, so that we can stand up against it, because our rule of law is too precious in this country to let it be thrown out with the bathwater.
Yeah, John, I got to tell you, I mean, we completely understand in terms of what not only the government has done, but so many in the private sector have done to destroy anyone who was associated with Donald Trump, especially after that first administration. And then, of course, you were demonized throughout the last 4 years. And then all of a sudden, goodness gracious, you've become the most popular person, at the cocktail party here. But
I hope so.
How do we handle now, as Pam Bondi comes in as Attorney General, then, Kash Patel as FBI Director? I mean, there's so much cleanup that needs to happen in the Department of Justice. What do you recommend? Where do they start?
Well, after the 2016 election, and remember, in the lead up to that election, one of the most popular phrases at Trump's rallies was "lock her up," about, go after Hillary Clinton for destroying evidence while it was under subpoena, for doing a pay-to-play scandal, selling our uranium assets, all of these things, to go after her. And the first thing President Trump did the day after he was elected is says, no, we're going to move forward. We're not going to look back. That did not work. The payback for him being generous like that was 2 impeachments, 4 different criminal prosecutions, a constant stream of lawfare against him and his top advisors. So I am now strongly of the view that the only way to put an end to this lawfare is to hold the people that engage in it to account. And the head of the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice is going to be Harmeet Dillon. I mean, what's going on here is a nationwide conspiracy to deprive people of their right to an attorney, to deprive people of their right to freedom of speech and the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. The abuses of the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment are just stunning. And I think we need a Department of Justice and an FBI that are going to fully investigate that criminal conspiracy and hold people accountable for it, because that's the only way you're going to put a stop to this lawfare so that people don't use it again in the future.
Yeah, and of course the corrupt propaganda media will say, there goes Trump and his team. They're seeking revenge and using the judicial system to punish his political enemies, which of course is exactly as you can tell the story, John Eastman, and as your film tells in Eastman Dilemma, eastmandilemma.com, that's exactly what they did to you and to Trump and to other people. Again, these are lawyers who gave advice. And, Fani Willis tried to throw you in jail on a RICO charge that's used for drug traffickers and mafia bosses.
Right. A criminal anybody that objected to the election, what they saw with their own eyes. Right. And didn't believe the narrative that the government was trying to throw down, spoon feed down our throats, is part of that criminal enterprise.
But John,
they tried to use an obstruction charge that was the old mob witness intimidation statute. It's insane.
We are so passionate about this, John, and I do feel, and frankly, I feel personally that I owe it to you to tell your story even further, because, well, I'll get to that in a moment. Can you stay with us for one more segment so we can continue talking about this?
Yes, I certainly can.
Both Mercedes and I feel strongly about it. And you should be feeling strongly about it as well while you're sitting in traffic. So let's get to it, 8:15. We continue with John Eastman, constitutional law expert and scholar, a law professor, was a legal advisor to Donald Trump. And well, that's where it all went wrong. It's detailed in eastmandilemma.com. And we were just talking, Mercedes, about these RICO charges that Fani Willis tried to bring that literally criminalized giving a president of the United States legal advice and political advice.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, John, the reality is that even if you had any questions about the election back in 2020, it was sort of like you couldn't even say it because you would be canceled on every single platform. You would be canceled, in your jobs. It just was so infuriating that you could not even bring up basic questions on the election.
You were an insurrectionist.
And I mean, it's almost like anti-American.
Well, to this day, there are 120,000 more ballots cast in Pennsylvania than there were voters, and you're not allowed to ask that question. To this day, they've not been able to explain why turnout rates in nursing homes, including memory care wings in Wisconsin, went from 25% to nearly 100%. These are the kind of questions that every American ought to be asking. But you're right. Look, this is Orwellian. The government has said 2 plus 2 is 5. And you're supposed to not only repeat that lie, but to come to believe that lie. Or Rousseau, the original socialist political philosopher, who says, true freedom exists in obedience to the general will. And if you don't obey the general will, and the general will, by the way, is whatever our elites tell us, right? If you don't bend your knee to that, then they're going to kill you. They're going to destroy you. And that's what we're witnessing with this Lawfare, and why this film, I think, is so important. By the way, it's going to premiere on January 4th at Mar-a-Lago. People can go to that website,
EastmanDilemma.com. EastmanDilemma.com.
Yeah, and / Mar-a-Lago and get the details about attending the premiere.
That's
or
right.
It'll go live, it'll become streaming on January 6th at MadisonMediaFund.org, and people can watch it there as well, and distribute it as broadly as possible so that your friends, your neighbors, your family can see it as well. People need to be awakened to what's going on.
Our guest is John Eastman, again, EastmanDilemma.com. John, I'd love to talk to you about this on a personal level because, we talk about all this stuff. We talk about these people. They all seem like they're characters in a movie. And I think the American people, and even people in Washington, D.C. here on WMAL, who, I think our audience is the most plugged in when it comes to politics and government. We see all of these, apparent fictional movie characters actually walking in the streets in our neighborhoods and going to restaurants with us. People forget that John Eastman is a human being. People forget that these are people. These are human lives. These are fathers. These are husbands and wives. And, very tangential way. I remember I sort of got caught up in this in my own very minor way, but I remember my name suddenly gets floated in the January 6th committee hearings because Ginny Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, had sent you a text message saying that you had heard me on my show and talking about, the things that were going on at the time with regard to the election and talking about the constitutionality, talking about the law as a legal expert. I felt horribly guilty that suddenly brought Ginny Thomas into the hearing. And I got to tell you, I remember sending you, when this was all going on, I sent you a text message that said, I'm praying for you and I hope everything's well. Let me know what I can do. And I realized after I sent it, oh my God, did I just cause you problems? Because everybody in this town then suddenly thinks, I know John, he's going through this. I shouldn't send him a text message that'll get subpoenaed. I shouldn't call him because it's probably being listened to. I mean, this is what it deteriorates the human condition of individuals that are involved in this.
Well, and that story, Liz Cheney was trying to set up a false narrative that Ginny Thomas was feeding me inside information about the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So she puts out at that hearing that Eastman is communicating with Ginny Thomas. And then 3 weeks later, I got an email saying, supporting a cert petition, asking the Supreme Court to review the case from Wisconsin. I said, look, our legal analysis is rock solid. The only issue is whether the justices have enough spine to take these cases up. I said, I understand that there's a heated battle underway.
Yeah.
So she tried to put those two things together. The heated battle underway was because the New York Times the day before had published a story that said John Roberts yelled at Sam Alito saying, we're not going to take these cases up. They'll burn their cities down. Yeah. But Liz Cheney tried to create this false narrative. Ginny asked me, heard you on Larry O'Connor. Can you redo that just quick summary for a group that I'm part of? And by the way, what's your home address for the Christmas card?
For a Christmas card. That's right.
Right. I mean, it was completely innocuous, and yet they try and distort this. This is what lawfare is. Take things, distort them out of recognition, and then go after people.
And ruin people.
It's Stalinist. It's Stalinist is what it is.
It is Stalinist, and it makes me so angry, and it's meant to isolate each and every one of us as conservatives. It's meant to know that they are watching, that they're coming after us, and the mere fact that Liz Cheney and Adam Kissinger and that whole J6 committee sham, they better be held accountable for putting people through hell during these past couple of years. John, you being, of course, part of this process. I mean, I'll tell you, even for us, the Schlapps, I mean, it has taken, I don't know how long it's going to take to heal from the political persecution and the legal persecution that I know you have gone through, we have gone through. It has been completely brutal.
And John, I'd love to, again, to take it back to the personal level. They've disbarred you from many jurisdictions. Are you still able to practice law? Are you, what are you still?
So I've not been disbarred yet. The California
forgive me.
Bar Court.
Forgive
Yeah, it's all right. The California Bar Court was unbelievably biased, and we're challenging that on appeal. The only entity in California that has authority to disbar is the California Supreme Court. So we've got one more layer to go before we get there. They did recommend my disbarment, and that triggered moving me to an inactive status. So I can't practice in California. The U.S. Supreme Court has permitted me to continue to practice until there's a final decision on disbarment. So I'm still very active in our Supreme Court practice, trying to defend the Constitution against the various assaults on it that occur around the country.
John Eastman, the movie is eastmandilemma.com, eastmandilemma.com. I can't even come close to imagining what this has been like for you over the last 4 years. There is obviously sweet justice that this film will debut for streaming first 2 days before January 6th at Mar-a-Lago, but then for streaming worldwide on January 6th. Nothing can take back the last 4 years and give it to you again and make you whole, but, they say
Larry,
it's time. Yeah.
I will say this, and to Mercedes as well, by the way, thank you for all you've gone through. Last Christmas, an LA Times reporter wanted to do a feature story on me and my family, kind of a human interest, how devastated we were. And I said, where are you getting that? Our country is on the precipice of losing precious freedoms. And for whatever reason, I've been cast into a role on the front lines of this battle. I'm well armed for it. I've got the tenacity to fight it. And I can't think of a more important thing for me to be doing in my career capstone than fighting for the freedom of our country so that my kids and grandkids don't need to go through things like this as they come of age. So, it's an immensely intense battle, but it's one that I'm armed for and willing to engage in, and I happen to have been cast into a role to be able to do that. So thank you all very much for what you do, and Merry Christmas to both of you and to your audience.
Amazing that. Thank you for that, John. And listen, God puts us all in a place. It's a good thing to remind ourselves, especially at Christmas, that God is sovereign and He makes these decisions on our behalf, and He puts us in the place exactly where we're supposed to be. And I know it during moments like this, John, you do learn who your friends are, and I know it's been a tough go for you. But I look forward to having you on a regular basis. Are you on East Coast time now? I can't remember if you're still in California or not.
No, I've got a granddaughter in Central Time and a brand new grandson in Eastern Time. So we
can get you on the morning show. Morning show cycle is back on the page for you. All right, good.
Yes, it is indeed.
Excellent, John. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you, my friend.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
It is Eastman Dilemma. Is it? By the way, John, can I text you now without worrying about a subpoena?
Well, your texts have been subpoenaed, search warrant in the Arizona litigation. So.
You know what? I'll test it when we check.
Maybe
for
the next
here.
4 years, you're okay, Larry, or 8, or you'll be okay.
8:25. It's 8:36 this Christmas Eve in your nation's capital. Today, even here in Washington, we get to have our cockles warmed with thoughts of. I don't know. I don't even know what warm cockles are. Mercedes,
what are
bail
cockles?
me out
I've
here.
never even heard of that. Why don't you just say like eggnog or apple cider or I don't know, just a good glass of wine. Like, don't make it complicated.
Because it's 8:30 and all you're doing is thinking about booze. You are so Cuban.
I know, you're right.
But it is DC, and that's appropriate. You're right.
It is DC. And the Christmas cookies, of course, which I love. And I am such a sweet tooth. I can't stand it. We were talking about how we're just focused on carb diets.
We got to get back on the grind starting December 30th. Yeah, that's fine. All right, let's get right to it. I'm very excited about this. If you're looking for a last-minute gift item and you've got a person in your life that loves military historical dramas and fiction, I highly recommend this book. It is about the war in the Pacific, specifically the incredible role that the submarine fleet played. And if you know anything about it, it was an important job. But boy, the worst place you wanted to be if you were in the Navy during World War II was on a submarine. The book is called Sink the Rising Sun, and it's written by a friend, Jon Gabriel. This is his first novel. He is a former U.S. Navy submarine nuclear reactor operator, but people know that name, Jon Gabriel, ex-John, as one of the original columnists, bloggers, writers. I hate to make it sound old, John, but I got to tell you, we're old. We're, all of us who go back to the Breitbart days and pre-Breitbart days and people in their pajamas taking down Dan Rather, we're old, John, and it's good that we're not alone.
Yeah, we're so old, we're still talking about cockles and wondering what exactly they are.
What are cockles?
I knew I would get.
I don't. I'm going to look that up after this call.
Okay, keep us posted.
That said, John knew when he wrote this. It's like he had me in mind. First of all, I love historical drama, especially World War II stuff. But now, as the father of a young ensign about to board a submarine for her first deployment, anything that involves subs is piquing my interest. And John, this is a very, very cool story. Yeah.
It really hasn't been told a whole lot because it's called the Silent Service submarines, and I served was a reactor operator on a far more modern sub than the one in the book. But these World War II subs, they only made up about 2% of the Navy, but they sank 60% of all Japanese shipping, and that's what really turned the tide. After Pearl Harbor, most of the fleet was gone, and the only things left were a couple carriers and a bunch of mostly old World War I era submarines.
Yeah.
And a bunch of very young people took it upon themselves to do what they could to stave off the onslaught from Japan, and over time they were able to push them all back, and that's what Sink the Rising Sun's all about.
Yeah, the Japanese fleet absolutely devastated by submarines. You're right; it doesn't get told as much as it should because of the secrecy surrounding submarines. And because of that record, that's when clearly those in charge and Dwight Eisenhower and everyone in charge of the Navy recognized, okay, the Navy, the submarines are going to be the weapon for modern warfare. That's when they moved on to the nuclear fleet and really changed the tide. But talk about the casualties that submariners had to endure. If you were deployed on a sub in World War II, the odds were against you coming home.
Yeah, and it was the highest casualty rate of all American forces in the Second World War. One in 5 submariners gave their lives. 52 different subs went down. Over 3,500 men remain on eternal patrol, as we say in the subservice. So it was a heck of a risky job, but boy, they just jumped after it, and it's a good opportunity. As much division and strife goes on in this country, it's a good opportunity to remember what we accomplish when we just get together and work hard, and especially in the military, as you know, with your daughter being an ensign, and which good for her. But if we just kind of set things aside and we have a tough road ahead of us, we can join up and do amazing things, because these were,
right,
mostly farm kids who grew up in the Depression, and they just got there and got after it, and went after the two biggest empires in the world at the time and defeated them both at the same time.
John, how did you pull all the research together? How long did it take to kind of get yourself to a point that you can really connect to this, the main character, this young officer, in dealing with, I think, the mental, you almost have to have this mental fortitude to, be living on a submarine, knowing that you can die at any moment in the hands of the enemy.
Right. Yeah, what I started with is just people who are on submarines. It started out with a lot of captains, one admiral who kind of led most of the effort in the Pacific during World War II, Charles Lockwood. But then I just read a whole bunch of people who actually served on submarines, and then after that started reading kind of the more modern authors with more technical data and things. But I just really wanted to get a better feel, because I've been on a more modern sub. I've been on a nuclear sub. And after touring one World War II boat, I never call them ships, they're always boats, but touring a World War II era, it's just a different animal. It's so much smaller and tougher. Yeah. And, boy, I never complained again about serving on a LA-class fast attack sub, that's for sure, after touring one of those.
Guest is Jon Gabriel. He's a veteran of the United States Navy, serving on a submarine, as you just heard, fast attack sub. And his brand new first debut novel is called Sink the Rising Sun. It's about the Pacific theater and specifically the role of submarines. But I want to be clear, this is a novel, this is historical fiction, and your central character is 25 years old, which really sort of draws an important spotlight on the youth of these men who served on these submarines. These were kids who were doing this harrowing stuff.
Right. And what happened is, at the start of the war, you had a lot of submarine officers who were a bit older, and not nearly as old as me now, of course, but you know, they were getting kind of up there in years, but they wouldn't pull the trigger. You know, they had been in the peacetime Navy for 10, 20, 30 years, and they had just kind of grown used to, let's just keep everybody safe and get back home in time for dinner. And Charles Lockwood, who was in charge of submarines in the Pacific, he just said, look, guys, you have to, we're relying on you guys now. And if you're not going to take the shot, someone younger who will. And some of these more old-timer people, they just said, yeah, I can't do this. There's no way. And it was amazing how young so many of the people are.
He is a blogger, columnist, and now novelist, Jon Gabriel. And for those of you familiar with his work, I assure you that in Sink the Rising Sun, there is a fine use of Jon Gabriel irony at just the right times. Your voice is still there, Jon, even when you're writing fiction. Andrew Breitbart always thought you were one of the funniest guys out there, and he was right. And congratulations on writing a novel. It's very exciting.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much. And thanks for having me on. And Merry Christmas to everyone.
Amen. It is 8:44.
Merry Christmas.
WMAL, making sense of the economy because it's your money and your retirement. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
It begs the question, Mercedes Schlapp.
What
is your favorite
outside?
Christmas song?
Oh, goodness. You know, anything with Nat King Cole. I think Nat King Cole's Silent Night has to be my absolute favorite. How about you?
Well, I do like the Nat King Cole Christmas song, Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
That's pretty great.
Amazing.
I do love, well, I mean, I like Baby It's Cold Outside, as we just heard, just because it triggers people.
It pisses people off. I think it's a great song. I want Matt to sing it to me. Baby, it's cold outside.
I don't see that.
No. Actually, he's a great singer. No. But you know what? I have to say, Ava and Lucia sang beautiful Christmas
carols.
Kids
carry a tune. Oh, yeah.
They all can sing.
They're like the Van Schlapp family singers.
Yeah, they're related to Uncle Larry. They can all sing.
That's right.
But
That's right. I taught them well.
I can't sing. So our little girls went over to the Memory Center here, one of the senior homes, and sang Christmas carols, and it was really, really beautiful. I mean, you want to just cry because it's like these are the moments you want to be with those that just may be a little lonely this Christmas.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that's the thing. We've been talking all morning about the good feelings and the happiness and the sort of sentimentality that we're all feeling, especially this Christmas, I think, coming off the election, and some hope for a better day tomorrow, and if I may say, turning the page on the Biden administration. But we are constantly conscious and aware of the fact that this is a very sad time for a lot of people for various reasons, and hopefully the hope and promise of renewal that the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ and our Savior coming and walking amongst us as mere mortals, something that he did not have to do but chose to do, knowing exactly the horrific death that he would endure, that should hopefully get people to recognize that there is hope, there is something to look toward, and there is happiness to be found no matter how
and the beauty
hard it
of
can be for you.
Is that, God sent his son. I mean, to live among us, to understand the pain that humans feel and the joys that humans feel. So for, Mary and Joseph, it was such a joyous, momentous occasion. The three wise men come over to come and honor and worship Jesus. And you have the shepherd and the angel. And it's just the most beautiful
I'm sorry, are you just describing the cast of your kid's school nativity play?
That is true. I'm gonna start singing "Joy to the World" in about a minute. But
my kids, for some reason, a Power Ranger showed up that day. It was just sort of like a dress up.
What? A Power Ranger?
It was not liturgically correct, but it was funny. Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a special presentation of O'Connor and Company tomorrow morning, and we will also see you the rest of the week too. But please do, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling melancholy, there are plenty of people that you can reach out to who will help you through these times and feel the joy that is the season. Merry Christmas, Mercy. We give each other a hard time, but I love you dearly. I love your family, and I look forward to seeing you soon. 8:53.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.